Welcome to a world where freedom is a crime, where love is forbidden, and where the very act of thinking can get you killed. I'm your narrator, and today we're diving into one of the most chilling and prophetic novels ever written, George Orwell's 1984. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that Big Brother is watching your every move, every word you speak, every expression on your face, even your thoughts, all monitored by an all-seeing government that has stripped away every ounce of human dignity and freedom. Published in 1949, just 4 years after World War II ended, Orwell created a nightmare vision of the future that feels disturbingly relevant today. In our age of surveillance technology, social media monitoring, and government data collection, the world of 1984 doesn't feel like distant science fiction. It feels like a warning we should have heeded. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. With these opening words, Orwell immediately signals that we've entered a world where even time itself has been corrupted by totalitarian control. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll explore how Winston Smith, a man who dares to think, dares to love, and dares to rebel, faces the ultimate test of human spirit against an oppressive regime that seeks to control not just actions, but thoughts themselves. This isn't just a story about political oppression. It's a story about what it means to be human when humanity itself is under attack. So settle in, because we're about to enter room 101, where your worst nightmares become reality, and discover why millions of readers worldwide have called 198 for the most important book of the 20th century. Part 1. The World of Big Brother. Setting the stage, Oceania in 1984. Our story takes place in what was once Great Britain, now called Airstrip 1, a province of the massive superstate known as Oceania. This is a world divided into 3 perpetually warring superpowers: Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia, locked in an endless cycle of conflict that serves to keep their populations controlled and focus on external enemies rather than internal oppression. In this dystopian landscape, the party rules supreme under the mysterious figure of Big Brother, a leader who may or may not actually exist, but whose image is everywhere. Massive posters bearing his face and the slogan, "Big Brother is watching you," dominate the cityscape, serving as a constant reminder that privacy is not just dead, it never existed in the first place. The society is stratified into 3 distinct classes: the inner party, the ruling elite; the outer party, the middle class who serve the system; and the proles, the working masses who make up 85% of the population but are considered too ignorant to pose a threat. It's a world where the party has perfected the art of maintaining power through fear, surveillance, and the manipulation of truth itself, the architecture of control. What makes Oceania truly terrifying isn't just its authoritarian government. It's the sophisticated methods of control that penetrate every aspect of daily life. Telescreens, two-way televisions that can never be turned off, are installed in every home and workplace, constantly watching and listening. These devices serve dual purposes: broadcasting party propaganda and monitoring citizens for any sign of disloyalty or thought crime. The party has developed an entire infrastructure dedicated to maintaining control. The Ministry of Truth handles propaganda, news, education, and the arts, ironically responsible for lies and misinformation. The Ministry of Love maintains law and order, actually a place of torture and brainwashing. The Ministry of Peace concerns itself with war, managing the internal conflicts that keep society stable. The Ministry of Plenty is responsible for economic affairs, overseeing scarcity and rationing. Each ministry's name represents the opposite of its function, embodying the party's concept of doublethink, the ability to hold 2 contradictory beliefs simultaneously and accept both as true. Newspeak, the weapon of language. Perhaps the party's most insidious tool of control is Newspeak, a systematically reduced language designed to eliminate the possibility of rebellious thoughts by eliminating the words needed to express them. The principle is simple. If you can't think about freedom because the word doesn't exist, you can't rebel against oppression. Words like freedom are being systematically removed from the language, while others are being redefined to serve the party's purposes. Peace means war, freedom means slavery, and ignorance means strength. These aren't just slogans. They're fundamental principles of how language itself is being weaponized against the human mind. The party understands that language shapes thought, and by controlling language, they can control consciousness itself. It's a form of mental imprisonment more complete than any physical jail, because the prisoners don't even realize they're trapped. Part 3. The Forbidden Love. Julia, the dark-haired girl. Winston's world is turned upside down when he receives a small piece of paper with 4 words that could get both the sender and receiver killed. I love you. The note comes from Julia, a dark-haired girl who works in the fiction department of the Ministry of Truth. Winston had noticed her before and actually suspected she might be a member of the thought police spying on him. Her youth and apparent loyalty to the party made him deeply suspicious. Julia represents everything the party fears in human relationships. She's sexually liberated in a society that tries to eliminate sexual desire. She's rebellious in ways that are practical rather than philosophical, and she provides Winston with something the party cannot tolerate: genuine human connection. Unlike Winston, who rebels intellectually against the party's control of truth and history, Julia's rebellion is more instinctive and personal. She doesn't care about the theoretical implications of the party's lies. She simply wants to live, to feel pleasure, to experience the human emotions that the party has declared illegal. The secret affair. Winston and Julia begin meeting in secret. First in the countryside outside London, and later in a rented room above an antique shop in the Prole Quarters. These meetings become Winston's sanctuary, the only place where he can be truly human, where he can love and be loved, where he can experience pleasure without guilt or fear. Their relationship is more than just romantic. It's a form of political rebellion. The party has tried to eliminate sexual pleasure because it represents individual desire that exists outside of state control. By making love, Winston and Julia are asserting their humanity against a system designed to reduce them to nothing more than cogs in the machine of state power. In their secret room, Winston and Julia create a small bubble of freedom in an ocean of oppression. They eat real food, they make love, they talk freely about their hatred for the party. For brief moments, they live as free human beings rather than subjects of Big Brother. The Golden Country. Winston's dreams of the Golden Country, a peaceful landscape free from the party's control, begin to take physical form in his meetings with Julia. This pastoral vision represents not just personal freedom, but a connection to the natural world that the party has tried to eliminate. The Golden Country symbolizes humanity's connection to something larger and more permanent than political systems. It represents the world as it could be, or perhaps as it once was, before the party transformed everything into an instrument of control. But even in these moments of happiness, Winston cannot escape the knowledge that their freedom is temporary and probably illusory. The party's reach is too long, its surveillance too complete, for their rebellion to remain secret forever. Part 4. The Brotherhood and the Book. O'Brien, the False Hope. Winston's desire to join the resistance leads him to O'Brien, an inner party member whom Winston believes to be a secret rebel. O'Brien represents Winston's hope that resistance exists at the highest levels of the party, that the system might be overthrown from within. When O'Brien approaches Winston and gives him his address under the pretense of lending him a dictionary, Winston sees it as confirmation that the Brotherhood, the legendary resistance organization led by Emmanuel Goldstein, really exists. O'Brien plays his role perfectly, giving Winston and Julia hope that they can contribute to the overthrow of Big Brother. He provides them with a copy of The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism, supposedly written by Goldstein, which explains the true nature of the party's power and how society is really organized. Goldstein's book, The Truth Behind the Lies. The book that O'Brien gives Winston reveals the mechanical workings behind Oceania society. It explains that the 3 superstates are not really fighting a war in the traditional sense. Instead, they're locked in a choreographed conflict designed to consume resources and keep their populations focused on external threats rather than internal oppression. The book reveals that the party's real goal is not the good of society or even economic prosperity. It's power for its own sake. The party maintains control not to build a better world, but simply because power is an end in itself. The famous quote, "We shall squeeze you empty, and then we shall fill you with ourselves," encapsulates this philosophy. Winston reads portions of the book aloud to Julia in their secret room, feeling for the first time that he understands a system that has oppressed him his entire life. The knowledge gives him a sense of clarity and purpose. Finally, he knows what he's fighting against: the trap springs. But Winston's hope is built on a foundation of lies. O'Brien is not a rebel. He's a member of the thought police who has been watching Winston for years, waiting for him to commit enough thought crimes to justify his arrest. The Brotherhood may not even exist, and if it does, Winston has never actually made contact with it. The revelation comes suddenly and brutally. As Winston and Julia lie in their secret room, armed guards burst in and arrest them both. Mr. Charrington, the kindly old proprietor of the antique shop, reveals himself to be a member of the thought police who has been watching them all along. The telescreen that Winston thought was broken or absent suddenly springs to life, and they hear the voice that will haunt the rest of the novel. You are the dead. Their brief taste of freedom was an illusion. They were never free, never hidden, never safe. Part 5. The Ministry of Love. Arrest and Imprisonment. Winston's arrest marks the beginning of the novel's most harrowing section. He's taken to Ministry of Love, the party's center for torture, brainwashing, and rehabilitation. The building itself is described as a place where no one ever enters voluntarily, and where those who do enter are forever changed. In his cell, Winston encounters other prisoners and begins to understand the scope of the party's surveillance network. Everyone is watched, everyone is eventually caught, and everyone breaks under interrogation. There are no heroes in the Ministry of Love, only victims and their tormentors. The physical conditions in the prison are deliberately designed to break down prisoners psychologically before the real torture begins. Bright lights shine constantly. Prisoners are forbidden to sleep in certain positions, and the threat of Room 101 hangs over everyone like a sword of Damocles. O'Brien's true nature. When O'Brien appears in Winston's cell, the full extent of the deception becomes clear. O'Brien has been watching Winston for 7 years, waiting for him to develop enough thought crime to make his arrest and rehabilitation worthwhile. Every moment of rebellion, every word written in the diary, every meeting with Julia, all of it was observed and allowed to continue until Winston had thoroughly incriminated himself. O'Brien reveals that he helped write Goldstein's book, that the Brotherhood may be nothing more than a trap for potential dissidents, and that the party's control is so complete that genuine resistance may be impossible. The hope that Winston clung to, that somewhere someone was fighting back, is revealed to be another tool of oppression. But O'Brien is not just Winston's interrogator. He positions himself as Winston's teacher and even, in a twisted way, his savior. The party doesn't just want to punish thought criminals. It wants to cure them, to bring them back into the fold as true believers. The torture begins. The torture that follows is not random or sadistic. It's systematic and psychological. O'Brien explains that the party has perfected the art of breaking the human spirit while keeping the body intact. They don't want martyrs. They want converts. The torture is designed to destroy Winston's grip on objective reality. O'Brien shows him 4 fingers and demands that Winston see 5. When Winston insists he sees 4, he's tortured until the pain makes him willing to say he sees 5. But that's not enough. O'Brien wants Winston to actually see 5 fingers, not just say he does. This represents the party's ultimate goal. Not just outward compliance, but complete mental surrender. They want to control not just what people do and say, but what they think and perceive. Reality itself must become what the party says it is. The philosophy of power. During the torture sessions, O'Brien reveals the true philosophy behind the party's rule. They don't torture people to extract information or even to punish them. They torture to demonstrate power. The ability to inflict suffering is the ultimate expression of control over another human being. O'Brien explains that the party understands something that previous tyrannies didn't. That power is not a means to an end, but an end in itself. They don't want to create a perfect society or achieve some noble goal. They want power simply because power is the only thing worth having. How does one man assert his power over another? O'Brien asks Winston, by making him suffer. Obedience is not enough. Unless he is suffering, how can you be sure that he is obeying your will and not his own? Power is in inflicting pain and humiliation. Part 6. Room 101 and Betrayal. The Ultimate Fear. After months of torture and psychological manipulation, Winston still clings to one last shred of his humanity, his love for Julia. Despite everything O'Brien has done to him, despite accepting that 2 + 2 is equal to 5 when the party says it does, Winston cannot bring himself to betray the woman he loves. This is when O'Brien reveals the existence of Room 101, the place where prisoners face their worst nightmares made real. For Winston, that nightmare takes the form of rats, creatures he has feared since childhood with an almost pathological terror. O'Brien explains that everyone has something they cannot face, some fear so deep and primal that it overrides all other considerations, even love, even principles, even a desire to maintain one's humanity. Room 101 is where the party uses these fears to achieve complete victory over the human spirit. The cage of rats. The torture device is elegantly simple and absolutely horrifying. A cage containing hungry rats that can be attached to Winston's face. The rats will be released to eat his face unless he gives O'Brien what he wants. Complete betrayal of Julia. In this moment of ultimate terror, Winston discovers that his love for Julia, which he thought was stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than the party itself, has limits. Faced with his deepest phobia, he screams the words that destroy his last vestige of humanity. Do it to Julia. Do it to Julia. Not me. Julia. I don't care what you do to her. Tear her face off. Strip her to the bones. Not me. Julia. Not me. This betrayal represents more than just cowardice. It represents a complete victory of the party over the human spirit. Love, the one emotion that the party cannot control directly, has been turned into an instrument of betrayal, the death of love. Winston's betrayal of Julia in room 101 accomplishes what months of torture could not. It destroys his capacity to love. The party understands that love is the one emotion that can motivate people to resist power, so love must be destroyed. After his release from the Ministry of Love, Winston encounters Julia one more time. Both of them are broken, changed, emptied of everything that once made them human. When they meet, they feel nothing for each other, no love, no desire, no connection. The people who once risked everything to be together now can barely stand to be in the same room. Julia tells Winston that she betrayed him too, that under torture everyone betrays everyone else. But the knowledge brings no comfort, only the confirmation that the party's victory is complete and absolute. Part 7. The Final Victory. The Chestnut Tree Cafe. The novel's final section finds Winston as a regular at the Chestnut Tree Cafe, a place where former thought criminals spend their days drinking victory gin and playing chess. He has been released from the Ministry of Love, but not freed. He has been transformed into exactly the kind of person the party wants. Broken, compliant, and genuinely devoted to Big Brother. Winston now works at a minor job, no longer trusted with anything important, but no longer considered a threat. He spends his days drinking cheap gin and trying not to think about the past. Not because he's forbidden to, but because he genuinely doesn't want to. The party's rehabilitation of Winston is complete in ways that simple execution could never have achieved. Rather than making him a martyr, they have turned him into a testament to their power, living proof that no one can resist them indefinitely. False memories and victory. In one of the novel's most chilling scenes, Winston experiences a moment of false happiness when he believes he successfully solved a chess problem in the cafe. At the same moment, a news bulletin announces a great victory in the ongoing war, and Winston feels a surge of genuine joy and pride in Big Brother's success. This moment reveals the completeness of Winston's transformation. The man who once hated Big Brother, who rebelled against the party's lies, who risked everything for love and truth, now feels genuine happiness at news of the party's victories. The irony is perfect and devastating. Winston has not been forced to pretend loyalty. He has been made to feel genuine loyalty. His mind has been so thoroughly rewired that his emotions align perfectly with the party's desires. He loved Big Brother. The novel ends with one of literature's most haunting sentences. He loved Big Brother. This is not sarcasm or bitter irony. Winston genuinely loves a figure he once hated. The party's victory is complete not just politically or militarily, but psychologically and spiritually. Winston's transformation represents the ultimate triumph of totalitarian power, the ability to change not just behavior, but thought and emotion itself. The party has achieved something that previous tyrannies could only dream of, complete control over the human heart and mind. In the end, Winston Smith has not been defeated in the traditional sense. He has been converted. He genuinely believes in Big Brother, genuinely loves the party, and genuinely cannot understand how he ever thought differently. The rebels have not been crushed. They have been made to disappear even from their own minds. Part 8. The Enduring Relevance of 1984. Orwell's Prophetic Vision. When George Orwell wrote 1984 in the aftermath of World War II, he created more than just a work of fiction. He created a warning about the future of human civilization. Drawing from his observations of Stalinist Russia and Nazi Germany, Orwell showed how totalitarian regimes use technology, propaganda, and psychological manipulation to control their populations. What makes 1984 so enduringly relevant is not just its political insights, but its understanding of human nature. Orwell recognized that the greatest threats to human freedom come not just from external oppression, but from our own willingness to surrender our independence in exchange for security and belonging. The novel serves as a manual for recognizing the warning signs of totalitarian control, the manipulation of language, the rewriting of history, the demand for absolute loyalty, the use of surveillance technology, and the systematic destruction of individual identity. Modern parallels. In our current age of digital surveillance, social media manipulation, and political polarization, many readers find 1984 more relevant than ever. The telescreens that watch Winston constantly seem less like science fiction and more like prophetic warnings about smartphones, social media monitoring, and government surveillance programs. The concept of alternative facts and the systematic undermining of objective truth echo Orwell's depiction of how authoritarian regimes manipulate reality itself. The idea that facts can be changed to serve political purposes, that history can be rewritten in real time, feels disturbingly contemporary. Newspeak's reduction of language to control thought finds parallels in how political discourse is simplified and weaponized in modern times. The idea that complex ideas can be eliminated by eliminating the words to express them resonates in an age of soundbite politics and social media echo chambers. The universal warning. But 1984 is not just a warning about one particular type of government or political system. It's a warning about the human capacity for self-deception and the willingness to trade freedom for the illusion of security. The novel shows how ordinary people like Winston can be gradually led to abandon their principles, betray their loved ones, and surrender their humanity. Orwell understood that totalitarianism succeeds not primarily through force, but through the manipulation of consciousness itself. The most effective tyranny is the one that makes its victims complicit in their own oppression. The novel's power lies in its recognition that the greatest threats to human dignity and freedom come not from external enemies, but from our own willingness to stop thinking, stop questioning, and stop remembering what we have lost. Conclusion: the eternal struggle. George Orwell's 1984 remains one of the most powerful and disturbing novels ever written, because it speaks to something fundamental about the human condition, our eternal struggle between freedom and security, between truth and comfort, between love and survival. Winston Smith's journey from reluctant rebel to broken convert serves as both a warning and a challenge. It warns us about the seductive power of totalitarian thinking and the ease with which we can lose our humanity. But it also challenges us to remain vigilant, to continue questioning, and to never stop fighting for the values that make us human. The novel's ending is deliberately hopeless. Orwell wanted to show readers the ultimate consequences of allowing totalitarian thinking to triumph. But in reading Winston's story, in understanding how he was broken and why, we arm ourselves against similar manipulation in our own lives and times. In a world where truth seems increasingly malleable, where surveillance technology grows ever more sophisticated, and where political polarization threatens democratic institutions, 1984 serves as both a warning from the past and a guide for the future. The greatest tribute we can pay to Orwell's vision is to ensure that his nightmare remains fiction. As long as we remember Winston Smith's story, as long as we continue to value truth over convenience and freedom over security, Big Brother cannot win. The clock strikes 13, but we still have time to hear its warning. The choice, as always, is ours. This has been your complete guide to George Orwell's 1984, a novel that continues to shape our understanding of power, freedom, and what it means to be human in an age of increasing technological control. Remember, in a world of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act.